Guten Tag, WAP. This is Mr. Lindiger. Let's make history today as we go over Unit 4, Day 20. This is the last video of this unit, 1900 to present. Our last unit will just be review. So let's get started with our daily punishment. The past, present, and future walk into the bar. It was really tense. Key terms for today: Mao Zedong, Deng Xiaoping, the Great Leap Forward, the Cultural Proletariat Revolution, the Four Pest Campaign, the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. We're going to go over Chinese political and economic developments after World War II. So if you remember, last we left China, they were fighting a civil war between the nationalists, the Kuomintang, also known as the KMT. They kind of modeled their government after Japan. They were very nationalistic, a little bit fascist, and they were fighting the communist under Mao Zedong, the CPC, the Communist Party of China. During World War II, they're still going to fight each other, but they'll also fight Japan. The war will resume in 1945. The communists will be armed and supported by communist Russia. In 1949, Mao and the communists will defeat the nationalists. The nationalists will be driven to the little island of Taiwan, and the Mao Zedong will proclaim the People's Republic of China. Let's talk about some of the social and economic transformation under Communist China. They're going to create only one party, the Communist Party of China. Suspected nationalists were going to be executed or sent to forced labor camps. There's going to be emancipation of women. They're going to make foot binding illegal. They're going to give divorce, abortion. Foot binding will finally be ended. This is one of the reasons why women are very pro-communist in China. We've talked about Chinese history before, and they're always very patriarchal and sexist. One of the good things the communists did do was they liberated women. At first, communist China is going to be allied with Russia. You will see cracks in the alliances in the 1950s. By 1964, they're kind of going to break apart. China is going to remain neutral during the Cold War. I mentioned earlier how the nationalists are going to flee to the little island of Taiwan. The nationalists under Jiang Zemin, who's also called Chiang Kai-shek, are going to flee to Taiwan in 1948. They'll be protected by America. They'll develop their own modern industry. They're going to be a major world trading nation. We talked before how they're a little tiger. There is increasing tension for the reunification with China. Taiwan doesn't recognize them as a country. They're not technically a country, but really they have independence and stuff. As long as countries don't recognize them, Communist China is currently okay with the status quo because they don't want to lead to a global conflict. There's Taiwan. All right, let's talk about Mao Zedong. He declares the People's Republic in 1949. He's going to annex Tibet in 1949. He will have border conflicts and border wars with India. He'll support communist wars in Korea, Vietnam, and Southeast Asia. He'll intervene directly in the Korean War to prevent the American victory. He's going to try to industrialize China in the 1950s. This is called the Great Leap Forward. The Great Leap Forward was problematic. He wanted to catch up with industrial nations. However, China really had no factories or industrial base. He's going to try to the Chinese will try to create factories made out of like wood and stuff. He's going to collectivize the agriculture. Farming and industry will become communal. There's going to be a huge agricultural disaster and a great famine from 1959 to 1962. Between 18 to 46 million people will die. He will refuse international support and aid. Mao Zedong is the greatest murderer in world history. Not just the famine, but also like the hundreds of thousands and millions of people he killed under his purges, like Stalin. One of the things he did, which was very problematic, was the Four Pest Campaign. There were 4 animals that under Mao he thought were pests. They served no purpose: rats, flies, sparrows, and mosquitoes. He's going to launch a campaign in China to kill all these things. But if you understand like biology and stuff, some of these animals, even though rats and flies don't seem like they have a purpose, they actually do help out like the biosphere and stuff, and they're kind of needed. And specifically when his Four Pest campaign, where he encourages Chinese people to kill all these animals and kill like specifically the sparrows, it's going to have horrible results. So millions of sparrows, which are a type of bird, are going to die. And those sparrows beforehand were eating bugs that would have destroyed crops. Under the Four Pest campaign, Mao would give out awards like trophies, like if you would kill, if you could show that I killed like 100 sparrows or something like that. It made it into a freaking competition. I guess it wasn't enough that he was a mass murderer for humans. He's going to mass murder birds as well. But by killing all the sparrows, it's going to lead to a proliferation of all those bugs that destroy crops, which is going to contribute, along with the collectivization, to adding to the famine. In 1966 to 1976, some people were criticizing Mao, so he's going to do a purge. His purge is called the Great Proletariat Cultural Revolution. He wanted to root out revisionism. He wanted to revitalize the revolutionary fervor. Young students are going to become the instrument of revolution against the old elite. The old elite will be arrested, shamed, marched out in the nowhere. Some of them will be put in the gulags to be re-educated through torture. If you remember before, we talked about Puyi. Puyi was the last Chinese emperor. During World War II, Puyi was he was a puppet government for Japan when Japan took over Manchuria. After World War II, he was arrested by the communists. He's going to be indoctrinated and put in concentration camp. Puyi will be brainwashed, and Puyi will end his life as a gardener. Started as an emperor, ended as a gardener. Really kind of cool. Millions of people during the Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution will be subject to humiliation, persecution, and definitely death. Here's some propaganda from the Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution. Look at that. They're getting food and they're riding a dragon. That's awesome. This shows the huge death rate. You could definitely see like the death rate increased during the Great Leap Forward, and the calorie intake decreased during that time because of the collectivization and the Four Pests campaign. Let's talk about Deng Xiaoping. He's going to gain power in 1981. He kind of lost power under the Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution, but he's going to become the chairman of China, the leader, in 1981. Deng Xiaoping is really important. He's going to welcome economic reform. He's going to allow some capitalism in China. He realized that a full command economy was not working, so he is going to allow some capitalism in China, some private businesses. However, unlike Mikhail Gorbachev, he is not going to be democratic. He's going to still be very politically authoritarian. And when some pro-democracy college students try to demonstrate in Tiananmen Square in 1989, he's going to have his tanks run over them, make pancakes. But under Deng Xiaoping, he's going to make China's economy the second biggest economy in the world. So after Mao Zedong, China has switched from a planned economy to a market, more capitalist economy. They offer vast, cheap labor in huge domestic markets. China doesn't have laws for like the environment really, or minimum wage. They don't follow copyright laws. So you can get a lot of Chinese products for pretty cheap. This right here shows the GDP, and you've seen it like heavily increasing, especially in the time periods, 1960s, 70s, 80s. The last thing we're going to talk about is a pretty recent initiative by the Chinese economy. There's a lot of debate in the world on whether China is going to surpass America in being the #1 economy in the world. It is kind of problematic. China's been doing a lot of really great things like the last 20, 30 years. And one of the things they've done recently since 2013 is they've done something called the Silk Road Economic Belt. This is also known as the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. This was by the strategy by the Chinese government in 2013. They invested in 70 countries and international organizations. It was under the Chinese current president, Xi Jinping. He kind of looks like, people have compared Xi Jinping to Winnie the Pooh. He kind of looks like him. You can actually get arrested in China for saying that and get killed. What the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative has done is it's created overland routes for road and rail transportation. It's invested money in built infrastructure, education, railway systems, highways, automobile, power grids, iron, and steel. If you look right here, these are some of the things. A lot of it looks like it's in the old Silk Road, but it's built all this thing up to improve trade in a lot of these areas of Central Asia, some parts of Africa, and some parts of Europe. And like a lot of these areas, especially in Central Asia, are areas that countries had not invested in before, because Central Asia is kind of out in the middle of nowhere. But this has made China even wealthier and have a lot kind of a really economic sphere of influence in this area. And it's been very successful. So if you are a little worried about China's economy, you probably should be if you're an American economic nationalist. All right, guys, that's all I have for today, and that's all I have for Unit 4. Next video we'll be reviewing, and we'll be just reviewing before we get to the AP exam. Until next time, deuces, 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 yeah, boom, boom.